You need to live it. How do you break through? By doing so much content for so long that you start to get an understanding of the thematics that work. If you think that I woke up one morning and said, you know what we're gonna do in fucking August 2023 on my Instagram in this highly competitive environment? We're gonna make a meme that captures the essence of the video, and we're gonna do a 2-post carousel, because that's gonna get the most organic reach. I promise you I had no fucking idea. If you think I thought making photos that has a picture of me in it, that then says the person that's sending you this thinks, and then whatever the fuck we've written, was gonna be the consistent million organic reach post. When I first posted the first one, I'm like, this has no shot. Reps. Attention is the #1 asset. Awesome. Let's do it.
Cool.
The only piece of advice I would say here is like, think of this as a one-on-one meeting. Don't try to overthink of like everybody else in the room. Like everyone's individual narrowness actually usually touches everybody else in some way. And then I'll use that context as I go around the room. So let's lock in.
Cool. So I've been fortunate enough to go viral continually with the kayaking business. We have over like 400 million views.
Yeah, the content is obviously so conducive.
Yeah.
If you were selling concrete, it wouldn't be as easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the thought process, in my daily work is like, how do I convert more of that to actual business?
By taking the content that's gone viral and slightly tweaking it and making it the collateral that you advertise against.
Okay.
Let me say that one more time for everyone. The greatest thing about organic social right now is the algorithms are not based anymore on what they used to be, which is like your followers. It's now based on the content. So social for the first 15 years was more about like email marketing. Build a list, market to it, get a percentage of them to do stuff. Over the last 2 years, we are fully in the process of the TikTokification of all social. Kind of why I invested in Tumblr. I invested in Facebook and Twitter for the email thing. I invested in Tumblr for the content thing, meaning the social graph used to be based on your social network. Now social media could actually be called interest media because it's based on the interest graph. The Shed could have 19 followers on LinkedIn tomorrow and decide it wants to go, and the first post could get 1 million views if the post itself was good. So you have affirmation from the world that they like this video. Now, 2 things come to mind. One, does that equally mean that they want to buy? No. And then 2, that part you can't control. The part you can control is say, okay, this video got 4 million views organically on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Let me now retake that video and make it much more hard hitting. I'm gonna put a banner at the bottom that says, order now, discount this, let me change the copy. So taking the viral creative and turning it into an ad. The viral creative is building brand, the ad is building performance. We call this brandformance, right? Taking something that's gone well organically and turning it into a conversion, a ticket selling ad, excuse me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jumping over to like the franchise side of it, the franchisor side of it, how would you go about selling franchises?
By making content on LinkedIn at scale.
Okay.
You should be putting out 3 posts a day on LinkedIn, saying the same 7 things, 7,000 different ways of why they should work with you.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, we put out a bunch of content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Instagram's impossible.
Yeah.
Right, like everything's about day trading attention. 2023 Instagram is not 2014 Instagram. Right, Instagram's impossible, meaning all that these social networks are is supply and demand. The reason I'm always loud once every 4 years is something is starting to have a lot of demand that doesn't have enough supply yet. Enough of you have been in my circles of content consumption that all of you can probably remember 4 years ago. I'm like TikTok, 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 and I mean everyone across the board is sad that they didn't listen to me. Even if they did it, they didn't do it I didn't do it as hard as I thought I wanted to. As I wanted to. It's like this almost unachievable game. Every time, I remember promising myself after Instagram that the next Instagram, that I was gonna actually go 100%. Not 99, I was gonna stop. I was gonna let them all run the agency for a year. I am gonna go 100%. I literally see TikTok when it's Musically, when we were fucking in Park Avenue. Yeah. I'm like, I got it. And I went like 49%. So I know all of you went 12%. So it's because it's supply and demand, I apologize. It's like real estate. Like when TikTok popped, that was like Malibu popping 100 years ago, and like, do you wanna buy beachfront property? Because by the time you get to Instagram today is like buying, you're not even in Malibu anymore. That's how far out, it's so mature. What happens is more people, today, more content will be produced for Instagram than any day in the history of Instagram. However, in the last 4 years, 20 to 40% of that attention has gone onto TikTok. They've lost attention. Today, more ads will be spent on Instagram than any day in the history of Instagram. Ads take up more attention. There's organic, there's ads, and there's attention. Very simple framework. So Instagram today is really hard. The only way you hack it is the stuff I talk about. Best practices of the moment. If you watch look, I'm gonna leave in an hour. Please promise me to continue to watch what I'm doing even harder than ever before. Why am I doing a meme and then a video constantly over the last 60 days on Instagram? And why am I doing a 2-post carousel constantly, where the first one is a meme and the second one is the video that you were accustomed to seeing me just post the video? Why am I doing that? I promise you, it's not for kicks and giggles. It's what is now working of this moment. That can give you the most upside when it's, it's like, if you're the best player in your 6th grade football team, that's good. But when you get to high school, it gets harder to be the best player. And then there's college, and then there's the pros. Instagram now is the pros. If you're gonna really go crazy, you gotta be the best. Whereas other platforms, you could still be 6th, you know what I mean? LinkedIn, first of all, don't forget who's on LinkedIn, why they're on LinkedIn and what they're doing in there. They're looking for business opportunities. So your hard-hitting join my franchise is gonna hit harder in LinkedIn than it's gonna hit even to the same person. If Zach and Jack are just in their phone on LinkedIn versus on TikTok, in one place they're looking to be entertained or look at girls or I don't know what, the other place they're doing business. You the same person or a different person. So you gotta understand that.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on TikTok ads versus Facebook, Instagram ads?
So all the ad products are evolving by the day. There's a very good, I'm writing a new book and it's basically jab, 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 right hook again, but different. But I've decided to change it, and I think I'm gonna call it day trading attention. Because that's what sums up what I do for a living. I'm day trading attention. So like when you asked me that question, it was funny how my brain paused, because I have a hot take macro answer, but if I just double click a little bit, it becomes a very complicated, nuanced answer, right? TikTok, because it's an immature, younger ad product, it can be highly volatile. It's like a 4-year-old. Like one day could be awesome and the next day they could shit their pants. Like TikTok can have bigger variables than Instagram can, but it can be fucking crazy. Like one TikTok ad for you, given the visual of the kayaking thing, could lead to incredible amounts of consumption on the consumer level. On the franchisee level, I would run LinkedIn ads. You could literally run LinkedIn ads against employees of other franchisee and franchisor companies. These are highly likely to, So I think it's a mix, and I think you got a taste. But you got to spend like $55 on the same ad on 3 different platforms to see what's brewing. It's the level of like, the thing that all of you need to think about is like, if you're gonna get into peak physical shape, like that's a lot of work. That's a level of like diet and exercise that is like really fucking intense. Same in this game. If you're really gonna go there, you have to like actually be great at it. Like, you know this. The dream scenario is like why people take apple vinegar like fucking pills. The dream scenario is I'm gonna tell you to post one video and you're gonna run one ad and you go to sleep. It's just not like that. So that's how I see that. They all could work. But I do think if you're looking to get franchisees, back to the joke of you're gonna run out of family members, I think LinkedIn needs to become a passion.
Okay. Yeah, I do post organic stuff on there, but I wanna go harder on that for sure.
Yeah, and is it hard hitting? Like, is it deep? Like,
Could always be
yeah,
harder.
this is why you should be a franchisee for my shit. Like, that's a different, you know what I mean?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And then like really give that thought. Like, why should they? In a world of lots of options.
Yeah.
What's the actual answer?
Yeah.
And then that will force you to actually be better.
Yeah.
You use testimonials from some of the other.
Of course. Who's the most successful franchisee that's not related to you in the system?
My brother. Not in the system.
In the system, not related.
Yeah, was a previous tour guide that became a franchisee.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have that person, I would do a podcast that 4 people are gonna watch. Because that's where you're at, just like 4 people watch my early shit. But I would do it to get content for the ads.
Yeah. Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would never, like, no bullshit. Like, I love giving, I give back all the time. I do tons of stuff. I would never do what I'm doing right now if we weren't filming this, ever. It's just, I can't extract enough value from the time. I enjoy it, and like, that's probably a little bit bullshit because I do genuinely enjoy this and do tons of things that are not ROI time positive. But what continues to drive me, besides wanting to support the Sasha Group, is we're filming it. And it's one sentence to one answer that might be what I was looking for right now. So like thinking in those ways.
Cool.
Setting up certain things for the content, for the social, not for the thing. I believe almost everyone should have a podcast because having guests is a very easy way to get content. The Shed should absolutely have a daily to minimally weekly podcast because it's an easy way to create creative. I mean, you have a guest, they're doing the work. You ask them the 7 fucking cliche questions. God forbid the host has some improv capabilities and can find the moment. Now you're fucking, I mean, all of you live on social. The fuck do you think's in your feed? Half of it is fucking podcast clips, and the other half is like people on the street asking you to like rate yourself on how hot you are. You know, it's just like, you know what I mean? Like it's not complicated, but it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Meaning it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Create scenarios. Like kayaks can have 2 people in it.
Yeah.
Great. I think you should do a show where you're doing the podcast while the kayaking is happening.
Yeah.
Can you have 3 people in a kayak?
No, but we could have multiple kayaks, yeah.
Right, but it's hard to stick. Like 3 would have been a dream because then you could have the filmer and then you could have the interview.
I am already working on that. I'm doing an Adventure is Clear series because we have the all clear kayaks, and I go and interview the franchisee of every location or the lead.
Can I ask you something? I'm sorry, I'm stuck right now. I think you need to build some sort of thing,
Okay.
and you should literally do a podcast that is happening while the kayak. Like, I think one of the biggest genres of content creation is podcast while other action is happening.
Yeah.
Like, I've been dying for somebody to do a brushing your teeth podcast. Like, I want a double sync. I want the host brushing their teeth, the guest brushing their teeth. That's the show. Like brushing through the years, or I don't know if I can have, cleaning up the day, or like literally I want a 24-minute podcast.
I'm on it, Gary.
I mean this. We saw, 137, my media company, I've been dying to do this. We have a show now called Serial Entrepreneur, and in the episode, both people are eating cereal.
Cool.
Like Hot Ones did this, right, with Hot Wings, right? Like I was on it. Like I think there's 3,900, thank you so much, 3,900 more Hot Wings serial entrepreneurs to be made. I'm telling you right now, I didn't even know how many people fit in a kayak. Yeah. If I saw in my feed a podcast where the person, because you're back to back, right? Like this, right? Yeah. Like the person's behind you, right? Yeah. I think I know enough about that. Like if you're the lead, if you're the interviewer and you're like, all right, but why didn't you start, oh shit, why didn't you start the bit? Like that's fucking amazing.
Fair enough, I'll try it.
Like even in your guys' world, you could literally have a podcast where both people are controlling the drone while you're doing, like, I think people are fascinated when people are doing 2 things at once.
Yeah. I agree.
By the way, was that Katie that just handed you that?
It was?
I went to high school with her.
Get out of here. Let's get her back here.
I grew up with her brother.
That's very far. Ezra, can you get me Katie from my team? Bring her back here.
Last quick question
Yes.
for you. How do I over-deliver for my franchisees?
By talking to them.
Okay.
This is a really interesting, simple, see how fast that came? Super insight. By scheduling real time to hear the truth.
Okay.
The way you can't the reason most people don't over-deliver for their people is because they don't want to hear the truth. You like that one, huh? Right? And it's hard. Honestly, as someone who's pretty damn good at wanting to hear the truth, even I have 10% of the things I really don't want to know, but I need to, like I fight that last 10%. So I'm like, fuck, I'm really about this life, what I just said, and I gotta fight for the last 10%. These people out here are fucking in trouble. Yeah. Like how? One by one and in group settings. I would do a group, all franchisees call every month. We do that. Beautiful, but do real shit. Okay. One of the things that I think these two can speak to, you can speak to, when I do all company hands-on, I don't set the questions. I just open it up for questions and let people ask me questions. That is a level, like to the point where my team continues to keep asking me, like to set up the questions because they're so scared of that level of transparency.
She's like, why did you call me?
Because this man went to high school with you.
I know.
How you doing?
Good, you guys can talk later. All right. Go there.
Okay.
Like take that last one's a big deal. Because right now you're in a vulnerable spot where retention matters. If you're willing to go vulnerable and be accountable, you're gonna have a high level of retention on that small group right now that are not family members that will keep you surviving to when you break through on some of the other shit we talked about.
Cool, thank you.
Jack.
Awesome, so kind of set up our content, the way it runs. We have Epic Drone Tours, brand, platforms, and then our own personal brands. Then I've got my photography on the side, which
Makes sense.
a pretty big following, but
Yeah.
strictly swimming, so I should just share photos there.
But what you can't fear is the occasional right hook of like, we interrupt these normally scheduled programming to tell you I fuck with drones too. And let me give you a preview, because I have to do this, and it's humbling, because nobody, even the most secure at the top of the game, and you know this, right? Like, you see me on the team chat, I will post shit that I have to do that I know won't do well, but I have to do it. I want to see my normal 500,000 to 1 million views too, but I will take my 80,000 because I have to tell you that Sasha wants you to sign up for wine text. And it's not fun to get 80,000 views, but I'm in the business to help my dad get you all to sign up for wine, which by the way, you should all do that if you buy wine. You're right now scared to fuck up the algorithm. You're picking the algo and your subconscious insecurity of hitting your numbers over getting 2 customers from your photography world into your drone business. Isn't that wild? And you are like one of everybody else. So the people that got 4 things going on, fuck up the thing that you have the most followers on from your ideology for the practicality of your business.
That's true. So then
Stick with me on that. You got me?
Yeah.
Like, if your photography thing is your biggest platform, they won't love it, but they love you. And if you're honest with them, be like, you gotta make the right piece of content. If you just post like a flyer and be like, sign up for the drone, like they're like, what the? If you're like, hey, real quick, I know I'm fucking up, like you're self-deprecating. I know like what you want me from here. Just FYI, I realize a lot of you don't fully know me. Let me tell you about myself. I do this and that, and I grew up like, got it?
do you keep those, do I keep those separate from
You can.
just where I do all the talking head and all that, or?
You look, first of all, and a lot of you have followed me for a long time, I was always the one that was challenging you, like, do it all in one place, da-da-da. Like, I was always fucking people up. Now I'm set, because it's all based on the content. It doesn't even fucking matter. You want a wild card? Start a new account. It doesn't matter. You want to really get fucking liberated? It doesn't matter.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a real brain fuck to go from what we've been to where we're at. It's the content. It's the fucking content. So I think if you're respectful of your audience, disrespecting your audience in your photography is putting up a fucking epic, like, flyer. Looks stupid, like, you know, like a piece of shit post. We all know what that is, right? Like a picture that's like fucked up and like sign up now, like bad. You making a video, you know, and maybe a double setting, like the camera and the drone in your hand and just talking and being open with your audience to your photography, that's gonna work. Keeping them separate or not, I'm literally agnostic. I think at some level it helps people organize. I'm like very chaotic. I think a lot of people like you know this, a lot of you are getting fucked up because you care about aesthetic. You want your grid to look right. Nobody gives a fuck about your grid. You know? Meaning, I get it. Like, I don't want to discredit people going to a grid and getting, like, I love brand. But fuck, man, 90% of the action's in feed. So if you're doing grid for the aesthetic, but it's not following best practice to reach the most audience in feed to what you're trying to do, what the fuck are you accomplishing? You don't get it, Gary. I want people, when they come to my account, to see it right. I'm like, they're not coming to your account because you're trying to make it look right. You need the first part to work.
Awesome. So then for Epic Drone Tour specifically, we do a really good job of sharing. Our videos are dope.
Of course, they're epic.
And then we do really well with clients.
You like that? That was good. Give me some for that. Give me some for that. All right.
And then we do really well behind the scenes. So we show
Yep.
all of our pilots
Yep.
flying, and we travel across the country. So we try to get as much content when
Very
we're
cool.
there as possible.
Yep.
They also send me iPhone videos and stuff.
Love.
But what's the? I feel like we have
What
the
else?
jab. What's the last? Like, what's
Well,
the
what do you want?
value
What do you
to
want to happen? Let's take a big step back. What would you, when you post something on social, what would you like to happen?
get customers, obviously, but
No. Let's this is like a good game. Play with me. How many of the posts would you like to do that?
I think one every 10 would be
Good. So this is a good game because one could answer all of them. One could answer one. There's a lot of ways to think about this. There's no right answer. So let's say if you're thinking that way, which in a lot of ways, I think of it both ways. I think in those terms too. Jab to jab, right hook, right? But even when I know that the other 9 are building awareness and they may click the URL in my profile. In theory, all good content could be doing the sale. But back to you saying the sale, back to me saying I'm gonna fuck up my grid, sign up for Wine Text right now. Do you guys go hardcore for the ask for business on every 10th post?
no,
That.
Sure, yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I'm telling you, there is a disease in marketing. It's called caring about the vanity metrics over your business. We're having a logical business conversation right now. I'm like, what would you like to happen? You answered I liked your answer. I think it's one of the smart places you could have gone. But you're not doing it because you're caring about the vanity. Meaning you don't even, you're caring about the algo. It's algo over everything for everyone. And for me, it's business over algo.
But then what's the business?
Well,
Like, I guess it's hard.
how would you talk to me if you wanted me to buy your shit?
That's, I guess, kind of what we're figuring out is like we can give the, you increase reach by having better videos. It builds a better brand for the companies because they're doing something nobody else is doing. Is that enough?
Of course it's enough. What you're uncomfortable with is getting enough no's to make you question if it's enough. VaynerMedia gets 90% no's, 10% yeses.
So then because I think the people that we've worked with so far are capturing the demand. It's people that are the go-getters, they're doing the new thing.
I have good news for you. You're not gonna convince people to be more ambitious.
So is there a way to kind of create the demand by, I guess we have a hard time getting the people that aren't already looking for what we do.
You haven't even gotten remotely enough of a percentage of the people that are looking. You're worried about convincing the non-convincible, and you haven't even gotten 1% of 1% of 1% of the convinced.
That's what I was looking for.
You got it, my brother. One of the great things, I really appreciate you understanding what just happened. I would argue that I'm not sure if there's another thing bigger to my professional success than having the subconscious understanding at a very young age that you can't convince the unconvincible. Don't convince, just have conviction. I've been selling social media since 2009. How old were you in 2009?
12.
Good. When you were 12, I was walking around this earth trying to sell social media services. Nobody wanted it, but I believed. And I found a small group that wanted it, and that's why we did $1 million in revenue the first year.
Awesome. So you talk a lot about the consumer segmentations. We, as I kind of mentioned, we have the same services that we do, but a I can name 20 different.
Correct. The sentence you're going to say to a hotelier is going to be different than, right?
Right.
That's why I say the same thing 73,000 times in 100 different ways.
So how do you, the feedback we have gotten is a lot of people that we're talking to come to our page and they're like, oh, they only do commercial real estate. And they don't immediately see themselves, then they kind of assume that we can't help them. So how do you?
Well, then list them all. Like, I don't know what the website looks like, but literally it could be like.
We have that website and we're talking social. It's like when they,
well then,
if we do a cool shoot with the Padres we got 4 posts on the Padres.
Well, why don't you have the bio say like drone footage for anyone and any business?
That's a good idea.
Well, I didn't get here because of my looks.
And then last kind of one. So for a while, I've been the one posting on social and
Yep.
being the front, and which I want to do for myself. But
Yep.
we're pretty soon going to be. We are in the process of hiring a social media manager, strategist,
Yes.
whatever. What is the best thing to have them start right at the beginning? Like I can have them do 20 things, but
Well, I think if you're going to hire someone, I think you want to ask her or him what they think.
find someone that doesn't say to have a better grid, because that's what all of them.
Right. If somebody said like this goes back to having a good strategy yourself. That's what you're here doing. Correct. Like some of you now will actually all of a sudden that becomes your radar. I meet people all the time. I talk to people all the time. Like I get pitched to join VaynerMedia at the airport while I'm ordering a coffee. And I'm weird, I'll talk to them. And when they're like, I can make your grid great, they're out. Because I don't agree. I might be wrong, but it's my business. Like this is what I believe in. So yeah, I think you should less focus on what you should tell them to do at first. It's such a critical hire at such a small business. You need to put yourself, and there's so many talented youngsters. Like they're just everywhere. But you need to know what you believe, and then you need to have them present to you. You're gonna pay them.
And then lastly, sort of the future organizational structure. So right now, there's 2 of us, we're the only ones that are like salary, and then
Yep.
we work with, we have 2 basically full-time
Contractors.
contractors.
Yep.
And we're based in LA and San Diego, but we travel everywhere. We have a shoot in
Yeah, of course.
Missouri next week.
Of course.
We got 2 shoots here in New York on Thursday.
I love it.
So that's kind of the model we're going
Okay.
towards, which is having a network of contractors
Makes sense.
for the inbound.
Of course. You're a production company.
Rather than like a franchise with offices and full-time people.
I mean, becoming a franchisor, like it's an incredible business model. And I'm sure you know that. That's why you went down that path. It's one of those classic things that looks a hell of a lot better on paper than reality. It is hard. The reason it's so lucrative is because it's hard. I always say to people they're like, what do I want to, like, Gary, I could be anything. What should I be? I'm like, be a professional basketball player. Like, that's a good idea. That's a lot of money. Like 50, like the bench players are getting 30, like it's not football, there's 12 players, right? There's 15 players, like, and they're like, what? And the reason I always say that is like, well, I can't do that. I'm like, cool, let's understand that's true across the board. You have to first ask yourself if you're even a franchisor. Are you a full-time salesman?
It's basically
Good.
what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I understand. But how good are you at it? Because right now, getting some clients to do production of drone footage may seem hard. It's way harder to convince someone to change their profession to do, you know what I mean? So, no, I think right now, look, I think you guys are so young. I think there's so much money in drone production companies, way more than you can imagine. It's every day will get better. Kind of like social 2009. And freelance is contractor's a great business because you're not locked in. And James knows this, I demonize freelance. I always hate it because I knew I was building something slightly, it was a good model day-to-day P&L, but I want to build family like forever. So like I needed employees to become, like I needed strangers to become employees, to become friends, to become family. You don't do that. Like if I was just going for margin, I would only freelance. I would only contract. It's smart. Yep. You're not locked in, especially I have offices in New York, California. If I wanted to fire people, it's impossible. Like, it's hard to do business in these states. So like, no, I think you got it right. And I think you got a long way to go. And I think we talked on some really good stuff. Like all that mind time you spent on trying to convince people drone footage is good for them. Now imagine you only focusing on people that have already decided it is. That's why we crushed. Everybody we were competing with in 2009 was trying to convince everybody of social media. I was spending all my time trying to find the 30 people that agreed and tried to convince them.
Right. That's good.
Yep.
I talked to Julia yesterday about it, but if you want to, our team is here. I would love to do a fly through the office and show up to you. Cool.
In.
Thanks, Zach. Sounds something quick, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
I guess the quick one for me is, since it's just been the two of us, we have a lot of overlap in what we're doing every day.
Makes sense.
And so one of the things is when Jack's doing the sales, I'm doing scheduling. Yep. He's partially scheduling.
Of course.
And
you guys, of course.
Yeah.
When you're a small company, you're overlapping a ton. Mm-hmm. That's also good, because now multiple people know the full thing. And so as you grow, like the first 7 or 8 employees, 15 employees, I think should, to the best of their capabilities, be able to do everything, because now you've built infrastructure for scale. Because you could truly divide and conquer. Imagine if for some reason Europe passed a law and like the opportunity was obnoxious. The fact that one of you could just go and move to Madrid while the other, like, you know what I mean? Like, whereas if you only knew 20% of it, you couldn't. Mm-hmm. Overlap, both of you get in the dirt, both of you do the bougie part, like you just overmix all of it. There's really no bougie part at this small, right?
What's the one AI thing? We do a lot of AI on the copy and asking a question side. What's the one thing that we can use AI to go to?
I use AI to think about what's happening in pop culture. Like, I ask AI things like, why did sexy red pop? Why are corduroy hats coming back? Like, I like consumer insights and pop culture. That's why I'm who I am. So I don't think people realize you can use AI to be your thinking partner. You can literally type into AI, what would get people to want to, like, use a kayak? Do you know how insane that is? I don't think, right now people are asking it to do tasks. I'm asking it to think with me.
First question, kind of going off of the messaging for the previous two. I think as a white label agency, trying to be the agency's agency, it feels like we're pitching concrete, not kayaks or drones right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How would you, again, agnostic, our goal is to get agencies in the door because we believe in
I actually am going to throw you for a loop. I understand why you said that. Yeah. I actually think it's the reverse. I got a really good one for you. So I understand that, because you're B2B to C, or you're actually B2B to B. If you made content about the way I did, which is share best practices, you may even get brands reaching out to you to tell you to work with their current agency. You're one very great piece of LinkedIn content away from 55 medium-sized businesses sending that video to their current agency, telling them to hire you, because like if you just pounded, again, the same 15 messages, 73,000, the biggest compliment I get in my comments or DMs is when like, GaryVee, you say the same shit. Tired of you. Biggest compliment.
I didn't think you saw that. I'm sorry.
Biggest compliment, right? Because, like, what do you want me to make up shit I don't believe in? I'm sorry, I believe in, like, there's only so many things you can believe in. And yes, I'm trying to interject. Today I'll say sexy red, 5 years ago I'll say the baby, but I'm saying the same shit. Like, it's like I'm gonna incorporate it to make it relevant, and I may pick up new adjectives or expand my vocabulary, but like, fuck. This stuff is tried and true. This is why it's worked. Like, this is why it's like simple. Like, yes. And I intuitively knew it when I was a kid, which is why I did what I did, but now I'm fucking like double winning. I'm like, knew it and it's true, right? And so I actually think the reverse. I think the content that you are making about operational excellence, think about this video. 7 cliche things that agencies do wrong. You can run that ad, you can make that content in different ways for the rest of your life. And I think you'll actually get the end, like, you're just gonna, like, I don't think your shit's boring. As a matter of fact, I would argue something really wild. I think if you pounded what I'm saying, you may expand into other areas. Operational excellence is needed everywhere. He needs it. He's not an agency. If you do this content, you might end up having multiple divisions, right? What's cool about what you guys do is it's universal. It's why I like marketing. The ability to communicate is universal. Everyone needs it. I'm chill all the time. I meet anyone, talk business, I'm ready. That's why I never have to prep for speeches. Everyone needs communication. The government, from the government of Dubai to a guy selling pencils in a B2B environment in Wyoming. Everyone needs communication. Comes in different forms, back to your point, concrete, right? But I think yours is universal. You selectively chose through the history of this company to be an agency of agencies. But operational excellence, of course you know deeper nuances of agency life, but it's not hard to pick up. Like, you spend 1 year with a franchisor and you'll like, I know that to be true because that's why I started an agency, to figure out how universal what I was doing was. It's universal. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you gotta pound that. I think you just own unlimited content of operational opportunities, operational fubbubs, cliche like pound. What's the most universal mistake you've seen agencies make? Like the true or a universal mistake. One that is quite common every time you get involved.
I think focusing on vanity metrics and not sales. So we are so focused on like making sure tracking's set up properly because I don't give a shit about your click-through rate. Like it has to ring the register for your end client, and I mean getting access to what we need to do that is such a fight sometimes, and that's almost insanity because like in our sales process, as we're working with them, the focus is on performance, and then we get to it and it's almost like we're being hamstrung because we're being forced to talk about CPMs and CTRs when we just know that it's not translating.
Yeah. What I would do there is I would title a video, "The Reason Most Agencies Lose a Client After the First Year." Make sense? I think like that title, why agencies rarely hold on to a client for 2 years, and then you run that on LinkedIn on ads against agency employees, watch what happens.
The pain agencies have, right? Just build on that as much as possible, pound as much.
Yeah, think about what I'm doing. I'm reverse engineering something that an agency owner would like to understand. Because what you just answered is the reason. The reason VaynerX is one of the biggest agencies in the world today is because I built it to do the actual thing, not the marketing jargon thing. You can have 1 trillion CPMs. That's why Super Bowl is the best and the scariest. The ad is the best. You can't get 110 million Americans to know everything about you for $8 million, even if you're the best at day trading attention. The problem is crushing it in a 30-second video is hard.
I think that's part of my fear. I know that I preach that, but then I see the CPMs on LinkedIn and I'm just afraid to even run too much budget on that.
Well, that's because you're a hypocrite.
Exactly.
I fucking love you because what you know that I know is that LinkedIn, unlike every other platform, has an artificial floor on cost on ads, which is high. What I know that you also know but don't know as well as I know is, but who gives a shit if you get the thing that you want to happen? And that's what you preach on the other side. I prefer to pay higher CPMs almost always in anything that I own because I want the actual thing. I don't care about anything other than how many people sign up for wine text and buy wine. So the CPMs, if I'm buying low CPMs, I'm getting bad inventory. If I'm paying high CPMs, I'm getting people that are likely to buy wine. We figured this out with direct mail 100 years ago. You can buy everybody in town, or you could pay Amex to just send it to people who buy wine. Yes, of course it costs more. The data's valuable. The customer's more valuable for you on LinkedIn than it is on TikTok.
No, I just want to dive a little bit deeper when we talk about the franchisees. Just how do we cut through the noise just as partners in the B2B world for LinkedIn specifically?
The quality of the content.
Quality content.
Right, like notice what, like I'm so fucking in it that I can give you that title to a video and do the video and know it will do better. You break through the noise by the merit of your skills. That people always say that, Gary, how do I break through? I'm like, you have to be better. I'm like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, but getting better comes back to what I want all of you to be in love with, which is more reps. This is why, like, back to saying the same thing 800 different ways. Somebody the other day, literally in comments, because this is what I do, I read them. Gary, what is it? 10 times a post? 13 times? 23 posts a day? Like, you say all these different numbers. I reply, I'm like, bro, it's because I'm just living my life. It's just a lot, as much as humanly possible. As once and for all, as much as humanly possible. You're all gonna be doing it with AI anyway. You all in 9 years are gonna have 4,000 ads a day. So as much as possible, you know, that goes back to like, how are you gonna break through? You're actually not sure, but you kind of know. It's the same thing that closes, like things, why I'm good at content is I watch what works in real life and then I just make content out of it. What was the sentence I said to make the person buy it? This is why I'm unstoppable. I've been selling since I was 5. You know, I've been practicing. I didn't read a book on how to fucking, what's that book? Influence people and win over, what is it called? Like, thank you. I just did it since I was 5. Of course I didn't have to read that shit. I lived it. I know why I was popular. I know why I was the 5th grade president. I know that not why 94 people said no to me when I rang their doorbell to shovel snow, just like I know why the 6 people said yes. And why the baseball card sold. And why when I changed the display cases at my dad's store, it sold. And why when I brought small bottles of wine at the front of the register instead of peanuts, that was good because the small bottles of wine were $10 and the peanuts were 9 cents. That was good. I saw it. And I saw the 87 things that didn't work when I did it. I'm living it. You need to live it. How do you break through? By doing so much content for so long that you start to get an understanding of the thematics that work. If you think that I woke up one morning and said, you know what we're gonna do in fucking August 2023 on my Instagram in this highly competitive environment? We're gonna make a meme that captures the essence of the video and we're gonna do a 2-post carousel because that's gonna get the most organic reach. I promise you I had no fucking idea. If you think I thought making photos that has a picture of me in it, that then says the person that's sending you this thinks, and then whatever the fuck we've written, was gonna be the consistent million organic reach post, that is when I first posted the first one, I'm like, this has no shot. Reps. How'd you get those muscles? Outside of fucking cheating, which you can't do in business, no steroids in business, bro. How'd you get those muscles? I fucking worked. Even the really funny meme and culture of like, you're not ugly, you're poor. I think about that. I'm like, right, there's a proxy that made someone look more attractive. It was called money. Like, one could see that cynically in the way that I think we should, because I think it fucks up people, but there's a different way to look at it, which is like, nothing happens unless you do something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, of course, like, one could envy if you put beauty on a pedestal, like somebody having the ability to have plastic surgery and this and that, but there's still something that happened. Otherwise it wouldn't have happened. Like there's always cause and effect. We're in full control of this, right? You guys can answer this. You can all do what I do if you put in the 700,000 pieces of content that I did. You won't need me anymore. I don't want anyone to meet me. I want them all to do what I'm saying and never need me again. They know the answers before I do.
I think the last question that we have would be, what has been the biggest impact you've seen AI have on agency life?
I haven't looked, I mean, I can give you a ton of answers to that. I think, first of all, the biggest impact it's going to have is on the creative product, but right now there's too much copyright and trademark stuff that has to be figured out. But the biggest impact is companies are gonna be making like 4,000 pieces of ads a day instead of 4.
Even ideation, I think, like.
Of course, back to what I said earlier. Strategy is gonna use it the way I do. Thinking partner. Like, why are corduroy hats cool again? And you start working. What will 42 to 48-year-old moms in Iowa, when he has a new franchisee in Des Moines, Iowa, today, it's not top of mind for him to go to ChatGPT or something like it and say, what will get people to buy a kayak service in Des Moines, Iowa? But in 6 years, it will be. I'm old enough, James is old enough to know that people's first move wasn't to go to a search engine in 2000. You know? And now they do. Now everybody here is like, well, I gotta look that up. That's just normal. That's gonna be normal. You working with AI along the way of everything will be normal. So it's gonna have profound effect. And it will commoditize certain things. If you were a designer who doesn't have a thought in her or his brain, and you just sit there and someone else tells you what to make completely, you have a problem. But if you're a designer who ideates and thinks and you're creative, you're fine. That's it. Either you're a commodity or you're not. And I don't say that like dismissive. It's just the way the world worked. You know, most of us worked on a farm 150 years ago. Then tractors came and we didn't need to. I think, as a matter of fact, I'm so optimistic. I think someone now who is just like a non-creative, non-thinking designer and just a part of the, I think she or he finds something better on the back end of that.
So in terms of storytelling,
yes.
What's one blind spot that you've observed in mission-based organizations, whether it's something like the Shed or like Planned Parenthood?
So I'm in a lot of nonprofits, and when I join the board or advisory or come in to help, the number one thing I say is the number one thing that causes struggle with is audacity. They're audacious to think that just because it's a cause, everyone should do. It's audacity. Like, you know, like, I understand that my brother has Crohn's disease. I have a pretty good feeling that I care more about Crohn's and Colitis Foundation than other people in this room, unless they're affected by it. That's how it works. That's why we can't, like, the biggest problem with the world is lack of compassion. Same with cause. Like, I understand that all of you think that there's a profound social impact of the arts. Other people don't care. And so taking that knowledge to know that people, that you can't convince.
Right, focus on the high propensity.
Correct. But then focus on the micro realities. An 83-year-old widow on the Upper West Side who has a tremendous trust, right? Thinking about those kind of dynamics, she's gonna be compelled with different storytelling than a young artist who's 24, who was born in Jamaica and immigrated here at 5, that's growing up in Queens, is gonna think about the Shed. Right. And both can play. This goes back to and, right? And I remember my early meetings with the Shed, like really early, even with the board, before all of you were in place. I remember listening, I'm like, fuck, this is gonna be a problem. And not from like a bad place, but I just knew that they were trying to understand, like, there was incredibly good intent of bringing diversity and diversity of arts and all this. It was really cool. And I could see they were struggling with like how to make that connection point to like where the dollars are and all these different things. And I was like, it's and. You can do both. But from a storytelling standpoint, you've got to matter to the Upper East and Upper West Side as much as you have to matter to Brooklyn and the Lower West Side. And those need different stories, which is why they need different restaurants, which is why they have different schools, which is why they have different parks. It's different. And it's and. Our lack of capacity for and is hurting us across the board.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about it at dinner last night.
Yep.
Living in the binary.
That's right. Everybody, humans' desperation to make the world black and white when it's gray is devastating. I could promise you almost everyone's anxiety here on any level about anything is based on and or.
Gary, do you think brand is more important in the non-for-profit world than in the business world? And the only reason why I say that is because in the business world we know who our competitors are. In the non-for-profit, you're competing for dollars, whether you're in arts or whether you're...
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's tough in the way you framed it up. Like, yes and no. I mean, like, Nike would be out of business if it didn't have a brand. Like, actually. Like, I understand what you're saying. I think in some ways it's pretty universal, meaning you just want as many people to not only know who you are, but be compelled to consume you, right? Like, it's just very, like, I think about like Smart Water. I'm looking at that bottle, in the right? Like, that could be a purchase of convenience, right? It might have just been what was there. But Where'd you buy that? It was here. Right, fair enough.
Why'd you buy it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, I think about that a lot, which is like, why? Sometimes it's price. Oftentimes it's convenience, whichever one was on the proper shelf, which is why brands pay for slotting fees. But a lot of times, in water, we've convinced everyone, you've got to make a choice. I mean, even I was a kid when, like you for damn sure, and definitely me, like, we didn't even sell water. It was in the fucking sink. I remember when the Poland Spring big bottles first started, I'm like, that's a fucking hustle. They convinced people to buy that shit? It's in the sink. I remember that. Now we're paying this shit? $8? Right? What a job brand can do. Brand matters everywhere. Brand is how you charge $8 for coffee. Brand is how we convince people to drink something that is free for most people. And brand is how someone decides to take $1 million and give it to them versus somewhere else, or to go to their show. Like, think about the options in New York City. I can go to the Shed tonight and check out the exhibit, or I could do, 700,000 other things. We're not in a small town, right? And so it goes back to and. You have 10 platforms that matter, from LinkedIn to YouTube, right? You have 13 to, the thing you have to do is create cohorts. Yeah, please, you got time. Everybody needs to create cohorts. The consumer groups you're trying to get. For them, they're not gonna get VaynerMedia. And they probably understand that. I don't think they're like trying to get Droga 5. They have a good sense. They have a good sense of the range, but I also bet that coastal agencies may act differently than middle of America agencies. Agencies that are run by 22 to 30-year-olds are acting different than, right? So now you start making cohorts. So their cohort might be 22 to 30-year-old GaryVee wannabes. I mean this, because it's a very good cohort if I was their business. 22 to 30-year-old GaryVee wannabes, male GaryVee wannabes, who are running under 10-person agencies. That's a cohort. Next is 45 to 60-year-old agency owners in middle America who've been doing it for 20 plus years. Now all of a sudden when they wake up in the morning and they have to make content, they look at their cohorts. You can imagine they're gonna make a very different video. Literally the opening line could be like, hey, did you start your agency because of GaryVee? What we've seen from people, if they target people that follow GaryVee, that's like a good idea. Well, that video has to be very different to like, hey, are you tired of the last 25 years not being able to hold on to, right? And maybe in that one, it's a little more Midwest values than, like, maybe you drop an F-bomb in the GaryVee one. That's called cohorts. 83-year-old trustee woman on the Upper West Side who's a target that tends to do really well for something like the Shed versus 35-year-old, minority in a Brooklyn townhouse because they made it themselves. Both could be in the Shed and could be impactful, need completely different content. Right? The and again, which means your grid's gonna be fucked up. But if you wanna protect the grid because you have a board that looks at the grid, then you run ads and it never shows up on the grid.
We also talked about a team account on TikTok versus a Shed account.
That's right. There's a lot of ways to do it. Or you create a general account on TikTok that you own called New York Arts that just happens to only do Shed content. Right? Like for me, I can make if my dad was rigid and didn't want me to do the right thing for him, I'd be like, cool. I wouldn't try to convince my dad. I'd tell Brandon, my best friend, to create a TikTok called Wines of New Jersey and just post there so my dad doesn't look at it. Luckily, I won that battle with my dad 35 years ago, but if that was the case, which it could be for all the people that have a family business where your mom and dad is about that grid life, if you're about my life, don't fret. Just create convenience stores of Indiana and on TikTok and just pound your shit. Because now you don't have to right? Remember the old game, but this account has 100,000 followers on it that we built up and I'd have to start at zero. Woe is me. Today, it doesn't matter. It's the individual post. Gives all of us a lot more flexibility.
Did you get your question?
I think my question is more general.
Please.
We talked a lot about convincing.
Yes.
I feel like it's like
Mhm.
word
Yeah, it's been a theme.
Not to convince.
Yes, have conviction.
How do you navigate that as like an entrepreneur or young professional when it feels like when you are young, you have to convince, like you have to get people on your side?
By
in order to
understanding,
accomplish anything?
well, there's two things. As an entrepreneur, it's easy because it's you in the market. And you figure it out by realizing it's true. But I think you're more talking about being an employee. You know, when you're young as an entrepreneur, like you don't have anyone to have to commit. As a matter of fact, you could have a business and no one even know how old you actually are. It's when you're an employee that, to your point, one, first of all, the youth has it better than any other youth. When we were all growing up, like the youth today has way more respect from their elders in professional settings than we did. Because of all the technology shifts, you have leverage. People respect you on shit. You didn't even get talked to for a decade as an employee, right? Like it wasn't even like, right now I have people here for a year thinking like, when am I gonna be a VP? And I'm like, motherfucker, do you understand that you'd be getting coffee for the next 4 years of your life? You wouldn't even be able to talk in the old days. Like, you know what I mean? So, A, by recognizing you have it better, which is really comforting. Like, there's never been a generation that's had it better, which has led to some of the friction because they have it so good. Two, by being empathetic to them. You know, I think the way 20-year-olds break through is through empathy. They come in hot because they do know a lot of shit, but boy, do they not know a lot of shit. I'm sitting here saying that I don't know 13 big things in business, and I'm like about that life, and I have a lot of 20-year-olds coming in thinking they got it, and they don't. No one does. So having empathy for why your boss might think that, but to your point, you're absolutely right. When you're an employee, you are often trying to convince. But I feel the best form of convincing is conviction. And conviction looks different than convincing. Convincing is when you're trying to figure out what the board will say yes to. Conviction is telling them the truth consistently until you break through. Right? Agencies' biggest vulnerability, by the way, to you, is being yes men and women to clients. The reason we win is we have conviction, and we let the chips fall. The reason agencies lose is they say how high every time. They just want the money in the short term. Same with a board. The reason I can win with boards is I'd rather get fired, but I will respectfully answer the truth. Like for you to win, respectful conviction. Notice how I get things done. I respect that you care about the grid. I understand why you care about the grid. Now let's talk about the truth. The truth is it's an in-feed game. The truth is I can still do my thing. Ready? I get a no. I've referenced that as well. Oh, I can't? Then I'm gonna run ads that won't show up on the grid. Got it? Conviction versus like, these fucking people don't get it. That's all that I hear from everyone. Right? That's where you go. They don't get it. Cool. Then the thing that I always do to inspire youngsters, I'm like, if they don't get it, you go do it. But as long as you're taking that paycheck from it, you've got to figure out how to have, if you're going to convince, it's going to come from conviction, not compromising convincing.
Any parting, so this is our first time using the 4Ds to teach people SOC.
Yes.
So we're going to do some ideation around cohorts. We're going to talk about brand formants.
Yep.
We got a lot of B2Bs in here that I think struggle more with understanding how SOC applies. So do you have any words of wisdom before we go into the afternoon? Yep.
The best example of SOC and cohorts I gave were a B2B environment example. It was for them. This is real. It will work. You know, I would go in with openness, walk in with maybe heading to yes instead of no, and excuses, and then during the process ask questions. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.